The following is an encore presentation of a pre-recorded program. Chats and evaluations were only available during the live presentation. To join one of CJE Senior Life's many live presentations, please visit cje.net/events, call 773-508-1000, or follow us on your favorite social media platform.
So welcome, everybody. We're so glad that you're here. This is our monthly Insights on Aging program, our first of the new year, and it's my pleasure to welcome you. I'm Sharon Dornberg-Lee, Clinical Director of Community Services at CJE Senior Life, and our topic today is mindfulness in the new year. This series is sponsored by CJE's Counseling Services program. And we want to be sure that everyone is aware that we're offering counseling services via telehealth, or that can be with a video connection on telehealth or in person in our Rogers Park and Deerfield offices. We provide individual, family, and group therapy, as well as a variety of support groups. And I want to just highlight a couple of things very briefly. We have two newer short-term groups. One is called Building Caregiver Resilience, and another is called Strategies and Support for Managing Chronic Pain. And we have new 8-week cycles of both of those groups beginning shortly. And after this program, we're going to send you information about those groups. We also offer Pearls in addition to traditional psychotherapy. Pearls is an evidence-based one-on-one counseling program for depression in just 8 sessions. So if you want more information about any of these groups or services, please call us at 773-508-1000. If there are any professionals in attendance today, I want to let you know that unfortunately we don't offer professional CEUs for this community education series. Please be aware that all Insights on Aging programs, including today's program, are recorded and will be available on our website. If you provided an email when you registered, you will be receiving a follow-up email with the link to this recording, as well as any handouts that the speaker shares today, in this case, the PowerPoints. It does take a while for that recording to be prepared and then posted on our website, but you'll get the email later today or on Tuesday. We're closed on Monday for the holiday. Since this program is being recorded so we can share it publicly, your live participation is anonymous, which means that you can't see the participants, and we will be using the Q&A feature only. We don't use the chat for this program, but please do participate in the Q&A so that we can interact with you in that way. And if you have any questions for Kate today, please use the Q&A feature. If you would like to view the CART transcriber's closed captioning of today's program, you need to turn this feature on manually on your device. You can do this by selecting the CC Live Transcript icon at the bottom of your screen, and then select either subtitles or full transcript views. You can also adjust the font size there to suit your needs. I'm going to be in the background once I hand it over to Kate, and I will be monitoring the Q&A. We'll take most of the questions at the end, but if there's something really urgent, I'll pop on and let Kate know about a question. A program evaluation will pop up as you leave, so please take a moment, if you would, to give us feedback on the presentation today. It's really important to us in future planning. So on to our program. As I mentioned, unfortunately, one of our speakers today, Lisa Andrews, is under the weather, but Kate Maley is here to handle the program today solo. Kate is a psychotherapist with our counseling services team at CJE Senior Life. And we're so happy to have Kate with us again today to tell us all about mindfulness. So Kate, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm so happy to have everyone here and get the opportunity to present today. So I am just pulling up my PowerPoint. Give me a moment to do that. Okay. So if this looks good, I'll just get right into it and start talking about today's goals. Thank you everyone for being here today. Our goals today are to provide a basic understanding of mindfulness. What is it? Explore some benefits to practicing mindfulness, as well as some challenges that may come up. And then to consider how to bring more mindfulness into your life. It is the new year, so it's often a time for setting new resolutions. So we're just taking a little bit of time to figure out how might we set some goals around mindfulness in our day-to-day. But first, let's take 3 deep breaths together just to center and arrive together in the present. So I invite you to inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Inhaling, filling yourself up with oxygen. Exhaling, letting go, feeling the mind settle. And just one more breath. Thank you. That helps me settle too. So what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is an ancient practice rooted in Buddhism and Hinduism that essentially involves focused attention. I have up here on this slide a classic definition from Jon Kabat-Zinn, who famously helped to secularize mindfulness practice and helped us build a huge body of research around mindfulness with his mindfulness-based stress reduction approach. So Jon Kabat-Zinn says, mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So let's break this down a little bit. On purpose. This means not just being on autopilot. It takes intention and repeated effort to keep your focus on being mindful, to notice when your attention has wandered, and to bring it back. It also means paying attention in the present moment. So our tendency as humans is to time travel, to be consumed with thoughts about the past or thoughts about the future. Mindfulness involves instead a focus on your moment-to-moment thoughts, feelings, sensations, and environment in the here and now. And then finally, paying attention non-judgmentally. This means accepting whatever is present. It's not good or bad. It's not right or wrong. It simply is. And this can also mean not judging ourselves when we notice that we're being judgmental, right? So mindfulness, again, it's taking note, noticing. Sometimes it can be helpful to our understanding of what something is by discussing what it's not. So this slide has some common misunderstandings about mindfulness. Mindfulness is not exclusively seated meditation. Seated meditation is an important way that we can practice mindfulness and build mindfulness skills, but it is not the only way we can be mindful. We can be mindful in our daily activities. We can listen mindfully rather than thinking about how to respond. For example, we can just listen and just absorb, or we can pay attention to our senses when we're out in nature. So more to say about this, but just know that it's not just seated meditation. Mindfulness is also not just a relaxation technique. It's not just about calming down. The goal is awareness. So sometimes you may feel relaxed, but sometimes you may notice boredom, frustration, restlessness. All human emotions may come up in the practice of mindfulness. I think in part, this idea of relaxation comes from the opportunity to slow down or be still, which is all too rare these days. And mindfulness can, over time, help you develop more contentment and more peace, more relaxation, as you learn your habits of mind and how to disentangle yourself from them. But it's not just a way to relax. And then the third bullet point with mindfulness, we're not just emptying the mind and getting rid of all thoughts. Instead, we're really stepping outside of our stream of thoughts and noticing what those thoughts are. So I love this cartoon that I have here on the left. It says meditation, and there's a person sitting and smiling with an empty thought bubble above their head that says expectation. And then there's a picture next to it, the same person sitting, and they have kind of a neutral face, and their thought bubble is full of things: a car, a money symbol, a question mark, a heartbreak, right? The reality is that when you sit down and start to notice your thoughts, you may think, wow, there is a lot going on in there. So we're really not emptying, we're just being present with what's there. The next bullet point, mindfulness is not becoming passive or complacent. It's not about running away from reality. Instead, it's really about running straight into reality. It's about noticing whatever's happening with compassion and curiosity. Mindfulness is a way to help you take more skillful action. So you're not just accepting injustice or things we don't like, but it's a way to help you learn how to respond with intention, with thoughtfulness and care, not just react from your immediate impulses or your first thoughts or feelings that might arise. Mindfulness is also not a quick way to become blissful. Again, you may find that over time you can connect more easily with contentment, or you're more able to distance yourself from those difficult emotions like anger, depression, anxiety. But none of this comes right away. And you may find a lot of different emotional states coming up when you practice mindfulness: frustration, boredom, like I mentioned. But becoming familiar and learning to step outside of those thoughts can help create more peace and equanimity. And finally, mindfulness is not easy. It may be simple, but it's not easy. It could look like you're just sitting there when you're meditating, or just taking a walk when you're doing walking mindfulness, but it really does take sincere and dedicated effort and persistence to stay in a mindful headspace. But this also doesn't mean it should be arduous. It shouldn't be painful, right? It should come with lots of lightheartedness and compassion too. So we've covered a little bit about what mindfulness is. Let's talk more about the why. Why practice mindfulness? We humans have complex minds, complex lives. We have a lot going on, and it can be really easy to get carried away in our thoughts and lose the moments that we're actually in. So I have on this slide a picture that shows the difference between being mindful, having a full mind, F-U-L-L, versus being mindful, just with one L. So the person on the left whose mind is full, they're eating pasta, but the thought bubble above them has a bunch of different thoughts from their daily life. So emails, schedule, a computer, delay, documents, right? Your mind is somewhere else. It's captioned. And then the image on the right, again, the same person eating pasta, and the caption is, you are focusing on what you're doing. So their thoughts are, how delicious is this spaghetti? Fresh leaves, sweet tomato, basil. How cold is this juice? Right? They're focused in the moment, and they're enjoying what they're eating, and they're being there rather than everywhere else but in the spaghetti plate. So that mindful awareness can just enhance your appreciation for day-to-day experiences, increase your day-to-day kind of pleasure and enjoyment, but it can also be helpful when you're coping with problems. So the benefit of non-judgmental present moment awareness, tuning in, slowing down, getting familiar with our thought patterns, starting to interrupt them. The benefit is that you can start to find a more balanced assessment of your situation. With mindfulness, we're shifting our awareness from experiencing to observing your experience, which helps increase your capacity for objectivity, empathy, and emotional tolerance of challenging states. So I have on this slide a cartoon where it's 3 different images. The first is a person who's just caught up in an all-consuming problem. They look really upset, and it's fully surrounding them. The middle image is the person who has a problem. It's floating above them, but they're tuning into the present moment. They're paying attention to the light, the room, the sounds around them, the breath, the body, the present moment. And then finally, on the right, you see them kind of land with these more balanced thoughts. The problem is still there, but now they're thinking, will this matter 10 years from now? They're thinking, I've coped before. With help, I can manage. So notice it doesn't change the reality that there's a problem, but it does help them find a calmer, more grounded approach. Mindfulness helps us acknowledge present moment reality as it is found, whether it is pleasant or unpleasant, as the first step towards transforming that reality potentially and transforming our relationship to it. I also like about this image that the middle panel, when they're in this present moment, they're practicing mindfulness, all of the different aspects of experience that they're tuning into. So this person is paying attention again to light, sounds, breath, body, right? There are so many entry points to mindfulness. People might use imagery or repeated phrases to help them stay present. We'll talk a little bit more about this and I'll give some ideas of what's available, but the point is you can experiment to find what works for you. You may find that mindfulness of breath just does not connect, but wow, listening to sounds really helps you stay present. So I encourage you to explore what works best for you. Okay, so we're still in the why. Soon we'll talk a little bit more about the how of mindfulness, but this slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about the research on mindfulness. So I mentioned Jon Kabat-Zinn a bit ago. In the late 70s, he developed an 8-week program called mindfulness-based stress reduction. This program is highly structured. And so that enabled researchers to start to really study systematically the impact of a mindfulness meditation practice. And so since that time, research on meditation and on mindfulness has been growing exponentially. And researchers are finding numerous benefits. I can't go into all of that now, but I have included several links on this slide where you can research more. But just to highlight a few things, it can improve relationship satisfaction, improve quality of sleep, boost your immunity, support working memory, increase empathy, improve cognition, may help lower blood pressure. So all of this in kind of looking at, more recently, there have been more studies that look at all the body of literature and say, well, what are the mechanisms? What's making mindfulness helpful? And a lot of that is related to its ability to dial down the body's response to stress. So chronic stress can harm our immune system, make other health problems worse, harm our relationships, right? But by lowering stress, mindfulness can help impact all of these different areas of the body and of your life. And researchers are finding that there are actual changes in brain structure and in patterns of activity in areas of the brain that are associated with attention, emotion regulation, and self-awareness. So there's real concrete, tangible changes that are happening when people practice mindfulness. And you can start at any age. Those changes are always possible. I do want to note, though, that mindfulness meditation might not be good for everyone all the time, especially those who have experienced trauma. Meditation can bring up challenging emotions and sensations and memories. So it's important to notice that if your mindfulness practice feels overwhelming or distressing, stop. Do something more supportive. And a therapist, potentially a CJE therapist, can help you process what's coming up for you, maybe find other strategies to increase your mental health and well-being, and find more supportive ways potentially to enter into a mindfulness practice. And you can always call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 if you're overwhelmed and just need someone to talk to. They're available 24/7. Okay, so we've talked about the what and the why. Let's talk a little bit about the how. So as I mentioned, you really can practice mindfulness throughout your day at any point. So one way to think about it is, can you just do one thing at a time instead of multitasking? How many of us are, walking around, reading something or looking at your phone and doing 10 things at once rather than just simply being with what we're doing in that moment? When you wake up, do you normally check your phone first thing? Could you instead take a few moments to be present, take a few deep breaths, notice how you're feeling, or even set an intention for the day? Or can you find other natural moments of transition through the day? So at meal times or before leaving from home or returning home, before going to sleep, maybe during a shower or other activities that have lots of sensory input happening. So you could pay attention to the smell, if you're showering, of your soap, or the feeling of water on your skin. You can also do this while washing dishes, brushing your teeth, maybe cooking or eating. It's another time that our minds tend to go on autopilot. So maybe before you start eating, can you pause, take a few breaths, just like we did at the beginning of this presentation? Check in with your body, notice any physical sensations. And then as you're eating, notice the textures, the taste, the flavor of your food. You can also practice mindfulness with less pleasant activities, like waiting in line or while you're driving or stuck in traffic, right? You can experiment with noticing what is frustration like for me in this moment, what is tiredness like, and just practice being more aware of what's around you. Maybe if you're stuck in traffic, can you turn off the radio and just be in tune with how you feel, the other people around you, and even send compassion to other drivers or pedestrians that you see? Again, find what works for you, but maybe setting the intention to bring more mindfulness into your daily life, the things you're already doing. And you can think of mindfulness as a muscle. So for some people, it can be helpful to take a more formal approach to cultivating mindfulness. So it gets stronger the more you use it, and consistency is key. So just like you start learning to build muscle through weightlifting, you start with small weights and you gradually increase them. This is the same with mindfulness. You can start in small little bits and increase it. And you might want something structured like a gym setting to help you really focus on building that strength. So this next slide talks a little bit about how to sit for a mindfulness meditation if you want to take on this more formal approach. I'll break that down a little bit. Choose a comfortable position on a cushion or a chair. Sit upright, alert, yet relaxed, and think dignified. So you don't want to be all hunched up and stressed out about being right, but you also don't want to be too slumped over. You want to be able to stay in your awareness. You can rest your hands lightly in your lap or by your sides. Again, the idea is just a comfortable presence. You can lower your gaze towards the floor or even close your eyes fully, and this helps to turn your awareness inward. And then choose your focus. Lots of people start with breath awareness to notice what it feels like to be breathing. You can also use a guided meditation to support you in choosing a focus and keeping that focus. And as I mentioned, start small. Aim for consistency. So maybe 5 minutes every morning of just a focused time to sit and breathe and be present. This slide is titled The Wandering Mind. So it is normal for your thoughts to wander during mindfulness meditation. This will happen. Instead of struggling against your thoughts, the practice of mindfulness meditation is to simply notice your thoughts without judgment, acknowledge that your mind has wandered, and compassionately return your attention to your meditation practice. And you can expect to repeat this process again and again and again. This literally is the practice, this act of noticing your thoughts and gently returning your attention. And there are, like I said earlier, many kinds of mindfulness meditation, lots of different ways to focus. But this is the basic structure, is letting the mind do its thing and coming back, and always working on that coming back with kindness. So we've talked a little bit about the how to practice. So why don't we give it a try? I'll talk about a few different options for different objects of focus, and you can choose one of them. So like I mentioned, some people choose the breath. Notice where you feel it in your body. What does it feel like to be breathing? Maybe tune into the back of the body breathing. That can be an interesting place to notice sensation. You could also pay attention to the sounds around you. Or maybe the sense of touch. So what are you sitting on? What does your clothing feel like, right? Just really, really sink into touch. You could also do a body scan. So mentally move your awareness from your head down to your toes, moving through all the different parts of your body. You could also choose a phrase like, I breathe in calm, I breathe out stress, and just sit with that for a minute. If you'd like, you can also choose a daily life practice. So choose some activity to practice mindfully for 1 minute. You could tidy your desk, your immediate area around you. You could put on lotion, pet your cat. Maybe you're already doing something else while you're listening, like folding laundry. Whatever it is, can you be there mindfully, really pay attention to your experience? Every time your attention has wandered, just bring it back. And I'll be in charge of the clock. So I'll tell you when 1 minute has passed. So as I'm setting up the timer, you take a moment to choose your object of focus, whatever you want to work with for this next minute, 60 seconds. If you're staying seated, get comfortable, and then we'll begin. You may notice your awareness has wandered. So here, just bring it back gently, kindly to whatever you're focusing on. And as you're ready, deepen your breath. 1 minute has passed. So that was it. Just 1 minute of practice. Now that we've practiced a little bit together, you may have noticed some challenges start to come up. So let's talk about that. This cartoon, I think, is really great and funny. She said there's a person kind of sitting in the meditation, classic meditation posture. And she says, I know there's no way to do this wrong, but I'm sure I'm not doing it right. Right? It can feel that way. Like, I know my mind's supposed to wander, but it wandered so much and I don't like that. So let's talk about a couple of the main challenges that come up. One is a busy mind. And feel free to enter into the Q&A, maybe some challenges that you noticed as you just breathed for 1 minute together. I'd love to hear what you all experienced or ran into, or what you run into if you do have a mindfulness practice outside of this. But again, just starting off, busy mind, it's like the #1 challenge that people have. And yet it is what we are supposed to expect. It's what our brains are designed to do, right? They're designed to think. So coming into your mindfulness meditation practice, we should expect a busy mind. Notice what it's like, and then gently return our attention to mindfulness. That being said, it can be helpful to try to work with that and to try to get your brain to settle down a little bit. So something I have tried is journaling before I meditate. That can be really helpful just to get some of the thoughts out before you even sit down to practice. I found sometimes that when I'm meditating and my mind is so busy, I start to realize, I haven't just sat down and been with myself and just thought. Sometimes we are so busy, we're always plugged in or doing something, we don't even really take the time to be with ourselves and think through a problem. So do you just need space to think? That's one way to approach it. Another is to count your breath. So maybe breathing in 1, breathing out 1, breathing in 2, breathing out 2. And if you get distracted, you can start over again. Maybe see how high you can get, or count to 10 and then start over and do that again and again. But that act of counting can help focus the attention a little bit. You can also use a phrase like breathing in, breathing out, again, just to keep your awareness less on your thoughts and more on your breath. You can also try mentally noting. So you can label your thoughts. When you see a bunch of thoughts, you can just think, oh, thinking. Or if a lot of them seem like worry or anxiety, you can say, oh, there's worry, right? You don't have to get into the content of it. You can just say, oh, there's worry. I also think that imagery can be really helpful for a busy mind. So I have a couple of ideas up here, but there are lots that we can work with. So this one in the top left corner, there's a person standing behind a waterfall. So can you imagine that your thoughts are like a waterfall flowing down and you're just behind it in kind of a cave, still watching this raging waterfall? You can also think about your mind as the sky, and your thoughts are like the weather pattern. So perhaps your thoughts are like big, fluffy white clouds just floating on by. Can you watch them float by without getting carried away with them? Another image is sitting beside a river. So we often call this leaves on a stream. Can you imagine yourself sitting beside a stream or a river, putting your thoughts on the leaves and letting them float on by, just watching them. If they get stuck, let them get stuck, and then eventually they'll shake loose and keep flowing. You could also imagine yourself sitting in a theater and watching your thoughts on a stage or on a screen, right? But you're not in the thoughts, you are watching them, you are observing. So these are options to play with. Another challenge that can come up is a restless body. So maybe a little too active or fidgety. On the other side of that, tiredness, maybe a little bit heavy or slow. So for both of those challenges, first of all, can you just observe your experience? Again, can you approach it with mindfulness? What is it like to be restless? What is it like to be tired? Perhaps you want to experiment with a shorter practice. Maybe that's just easier for you to tolerate right now, and that's okay. You could sprinkle a lot of shorter practices through your day instead of one big practice. You can also try different kinds of practice. So you could try a walking meditation, a movement meditation, or even just standing still. You could also try walking, stretching, or exercising beforehand to either wake yourself up or get some of that energy out. You could experiment with a different time of day, or you could practice diaphragmatic breathing, that deep belly breathing. So expanding your inhalation as big as you can, really relaxing the low belly, letting the diaphragm fully expand and contract, bringing a lot more oxygen through your system, kind of waking you up and at the same time calming you down. So that applies to both. I had a couple of other ideas. One is restlessness. Sometimes it can help to just dive into bodily awareness when you're feeling restless. So can you do a body scan at that time? Really move through your body, notice what it feels like in every different part. You can also do a progressive muscle relaxation. So this is a more active practice where you're scanning through your body, but you're also tensing up and then relaxing different muscles. And that might help calm and soothe your system. If you're tired, I often wonder, would a nap be more supportive than meditation? Like, are you just tired? Do you need to take care of that? So just some food for thought. Again, lots to work with. And again, these challenges are things to expect. This is the heart of a mindfulness meditation practice, is encountering this and seeing if you can encounter it with compassion and curiosity. So another challenge that's important to talk about is physical discomfort. So first of all, do not ignore pain. Mindfulness meditation should not be painful. Do not sit in a way that causes you pain or exacerbates your pain. Sometimes people really privilege sitting on the floor instead of sitting in a chair. It's not necessary. You still get you won't get the benefits if you're in pain and hurting. So that being said, sometimes there can be some discomfort that you can work with a little bit differently rather than just exiting from a posture. So one way is just to check your posture. Are you rounded? Or can you sit up a little bit straighter, relax your shoulders? So check in. You can also use different supports and experiment with different ways of sitting. So I have some images here with ideas for supports. The top image is a person sitting on the ground, but they have yoga blocks under their upper thighs to help support their knees. If your knees don't go down to the floor or close to the floor and that's uncomfortable, just prop them up with pillows or something. The second image I have has someone with a cushion underneath their seat and underneath their knees. So again, sitting in that cross-legged position, but with a little bit more support and softness that allows you to sit for longer or at all. Or like I said, use a chair. I've lately heard interviews with some of the kind of big meditation teachers that brought mindfulness to the West in like the 70s, and now they're in their 70s. And I've heard some of them say, yeah, I used to say, don't ever lay down, always sit on the floor. But I'm finding now that I'm in my 70s, it's not as important anymore. And I like to meditate in bed. And right, there's some softening that can happen there. And they're kind of pulling back on that idea that you have to sit in a particular way. So something to consider. Something else related to physical discomfort, sometimes just a little bit of planning can help. So wear comfortable clothing. Don't wear, your tightest clothing. Don't make sure to maybe bring a sweater or a blanket, because when we're sitting still, we tend to get a little chillier. You can also approach physical discomfort again with mindfulness. So what is it like to be uncomfortable? Again, not in pain, but just uncomfortable. And then can you experiment with, okay, is there anywhere in my body that feels neutral? Is there anywhere that feels pleasant? And notice what it's like to have all of that going on all at once. And if you tend to have pain in general, if you have chronic pain, I would also encourage you to explore mindfulness for chronic pain. There's a lot of research around this, and CJE, as Sharon mentioned at the beginning, we have a group on dealing with chronic pain, on coping, on managing, on thriving with chronic pain, and it uses a lot of mindfulness techniques. There's also a link in this slide to some more information about mindfulness for chronic pain, but that's something to work with. Another challenge that can come up is difficult emotions. This is a really common one. So first and foremost, be kind to yourself. You deserve it. Again, this mindfulness approach, try not to push the emotions away or get swept up in them. And then can you notice if there's a second arrow, which means like feeling angry at yourself for being sad? And can you soften there? I'll do a little aside to explain this phrase, the second arrow. This is a common parable, and it's a Buddhist parable. Basically, a person's walking in the woods and suddenly gets struck by an arrow. It hits their arm. It really, really hurts. It's very physically painful. And then immediately their mind starts to think, oh, what's going to happen? Why do I always get hit by an arrow? What if this gets infected and I can't walk back? What if I'm too tired? Right? You can start to see all these thoughts start to spiral. And they're already in pain. It's adding this extra layer of suffering to pain. So are you judging yourself for the way that you feel? And can you soften there? Another way to approach difficult emotions that come up with mindfulness meditation is to try a meditation for difficult emotions. So I have a few examples that are linked here that you can click on when you get the slides. You can also just do a search for them. But there are some really thoughtful guided meditations on working with whatever comes up, or if you're having a tough time in life, on how to deal with that mindfully. And then, of course, just like physical pain, with emotional pain, if it's too much, take a break. If you're overwhelmed, you don't have to be practicing right now. What can you do that's self-soothing? You can always come back to it later. On this slide, I also have an image of a lotus flower with a phrase, no mud, no lotus. So the lotus flower, it's a symbol of awakening in Buddhist traditions and other spiritual traditions, because it is a gorgeous flower, but it blooms in the muckiest, muddiest swamps. So its roots start under the swamp water and it crawls through the mud to get to the surface and to bloom. The idea being, if you want the beauty of the lotus flower, there is no getting around the mud. Right? No mud, no lotus. So again, those are a few challenges. I'd like to talk now a little bit about, okay, I'm bought in. I know a little bit about how to do mindfulness. I know a little bit of why. I know how to work with challenges, but like, what are my goals? How do I actually bring this into my life? So I have a couple of frameworks for goal setting. The title of this talk is Mindfulness in the New Year. I know that the new year can be a big time of setting resolutions, and then a lot of people it fades off. So I want to invite you to also think about each day as a new opportunity, each breath as a new opportunity to be more mindful. And here's one structure for thinking about goals that's called SMART goals. It's an acronym that you may be familiar with. Each letter stands for something. So the S is for specific. It should be a specific goal. The M should be measurable, so have some kind of quantifiable numeric component to it. A, it should be achievable, so something you can actually do. But also the R stands for reach. So it should be a little bit of a stretch for you, right? Kind of balancing that achievable but reach. And then T, it should be timely. You should have some kind of time frame on it to make it more actionable. So that's a SMART goal. An example of a SMART goal is, I will do a breath awareness meditation for 5 minutes every morning before my cup of coffee for the next 30 days, right? That is specific. It's a breath awareness meditation. It's measurable. You're going to know if you checked it off the calendar that day. It's achievable. I can do 5 minutes, but it is a reach every single day before my coffee, right? And it's timely for the next 30 days. We'll just see how that goes. So this kind of goal can be great. It can really work for a lot of people, but for some people, it can be overwhelming and too much pressure. So I also want to offer fun goals. This was a concept that Emily Ladeau came up with, who's a disability scholar. So this is also an acronym. F stands for flexible, right? Life happens, things change, goals can shift. U stands for uplifting, right? Bettering myself, it's not a punishment, it's a process that should feel good, even when it's challenging. So we want it to be uplifting, focused on feeling good. And then numberless, the N stands for numberless. Nothing will be radically different if I meditate, 29 days of the next month instead of 30, right? But that feeling I get of, oh, I failed if I only did 29, that might affect things. So can we keep it flexible, uplifting, and numberless, keep it fun? So an example of this kind of goal is, I will tune into my senses when I take my afternoon walks, unless I'm walking with a friend. Right? That's flexible. Maybe your friend shows up and you'd rather be present with them. And so then you can add on, well, I will focus on active listening when I'm with my friends. But you can see how you will probably feel better. It's uplifting, but it's not so rigid as a SMART goal. So again, these are just a couple of options Take what works for you, leave what doesn't. I would love to spend just one more minute in practice with all of you before I talk about other resources and go through questions. Taking a moment to find some comfort, fine-tune your comfort, sit up tall. And again, I'll start the timer, choose an object of focus, and let's just breathe together once more. Whenever you're ready, you can begin. As you inhale, feeling the lungs expand, feeling a sense of uplifting, expanding. And as you exhale, feeling a sense of letting go, releasing any unnecessary tension. Breathing in, feeling alive, awake, calm, and centered. Exhaling, softening, a gentle release. One more deep inhale, coming back to whatever your chosen focus is. One long exhale. Thank you for practicing with me. I'd love to leave us with some ideas for taking things further, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So here I have linked several different guided practices. So a 5-minute practice on simply being, a 10-minute body scan, a 15-minute loving kindness meditation. There are also 24/7 mindfulness hotlines. I love this idea. Just plug it into your phone, and then when you need that moment of mindfulness, just dial it up and you can access a guided meditation. One is run through Harvard, one is run through NYU. You can also practice in community. That can help with creating some consistency. CJE hosts a mindfulness session every week, every Friday with Paul. So I encourage you to check that out. You can also listen to podcasts about mindfulness. So Tara Brock has a podcast that's lovely. She gives meditation talks. 10% Happier is a wonderful podcast and community for fidgety skeptics. So it's kind of open to those of us who are a little bit more skeptical of mindfulness. And it's hosted by Dan Harris, who's a former news anchor who famously had a panic attack live on air while giving a news broadcast. And that was a catalyst for him to start practicing mindfulness. And he's since devoted his entire career to it. So he talks to meditators, celebrities, scientists, all kinds of people, and makes it really accessible to people who aren't as familiar or comfortable with mindfulness or meditation. Meta Hour is another one. Sharon Salzberg is a lovely practitioner and guide. You can also try meditation apps. So I've listed several here. You may know of others. There's lots that are free. There's some that have a cost to them, but they are a good way to track your progress, to access community and guided resources. You could also start a mindfulness group with your friends. So I've linked here a guide on how to do that, but could that be a nice way to be social and to practice being more mindful? Again, you can bring up mindfulness with a therapist. There are types of therapy like ACT or mindfulness-based cognitive therapy that really bring in mindfulness, and they can also probably just talk with you about your challenges and what that's revealing to you. There's a few online guides that I've linked here too, as about starting a daily practice that have some really good practical advice. And then I've linked, a handful of books here, but there are so many. So I encourage you to do your own exploration, what resonates with you. And then finally, CJE is starting a group next month. I will be leading the group called Building Self-Compassion Through Mindfulness. So it's a 6-week group. Really for anyone, if you're new to mindfulness meditation, or if you're experienced and want to get more into the practice or establish a stronger practice, we'll talk about several different kinds of mindfulness meditation. So we'll kind of do that exploration. Do I like breath meditation? Do I like loving kindness? Do I like body scan? Do I not like it? What works, what doesn't? And you'll talk about the challenges and barriers to establishing a practice. We'll work on setting goals and seeing how that goes for you. It's just a comfortable, safe space to connect with others that are embarking on a mindfulness journey. So please reach out if you're interested in joining the group. All are welcome. And with that, I will stop sharing the screen because we're ready for any reflections or questions and answers.
Kate, that was just wonderful. And there are a few things for us to talk about in the Q&A. As all of you can see, we are so lucky to have Kate as part of our team, both as an individual therapist and as a group leader, and now beginning this group to practice mindfulness. So we would love to have you join, Kate. I know just being with you for the last hour, Kate, I feel so focused and centered, and it shows what attending to mindfulness and practicing mindfulness can bring to us. One person made a comment that why practice mindfulness when you're driving? You should be concentrating on driving when you're in traffic. What would you say to that comment?
Right. How often do we drive somewhere and then you get there and you think, how did I get here? Right? We can really drive on autopilot. So mindfulness doesn't mean, I would never say close your eyes while you're driving and focus on your breath, but can you be mindful, as in, can you be present? Can you be focused on the road and the safety? And sometimes people can get so lost in frustration that it's a nice opportunity to practice mindfulness and kind of a compassion practice towards the other drivers and people on the road. So I mean more of that. And I do appreciate you bringing up that point. Please don't close your eyes and float away while you're driving. Be safe.
Yes, that's a great response. We do that so often when we're driving. We're on autopilot and are not even aware of what route did I take to get there? I'm just at the office.
Yeah.
So mindfulness can be a way of increasing our focus rather than decreasing it and being in the present. Somebody just made a comment, not only be in the moment, but be aware. I don't know if you want to, you want to leave it there, or if you want to comment on that.
I think I wish I knew where that came up in the presentation, but I do like that. Agreed. It's about building awareness and more presence. Yeah, I think that
And if
stands
the
on its
person who
own.
made that comment wants to say more, please do add a comment. But yes, so it's not just about the moment, but about really being present and aware in the moment. Somebody asked that we reshare the resource slide. I don't know if you want to put that back up on the screen, but I promise we will send everybody who registered today an email that will include all of those slides. And also, if you have trouble clicking on that link in the slide for any reason, I'll just include the links in the email as well, which will work more readily for some. So we'll get all that to you. If for some reason you didn't register today and we don't have your email, somebody just forwarded this link and said, come on this program, message me at counselingservices@cje.net. Am I saying that right? Now I'm worrying about, yes, that's the right email address, or call me 773-508-1088. And I'll make sure to get your email and send you that resource slide and all of the slides as well. So you'll have that information. Somebody just put a thank you in the comments that she really appreciates this. Somebody said, love your thoughts, ideas, and suggestions. Thank you so much. I do a 5-minute daily meditation, and there's lots on YouTube.
Excellent.
That's a great point. There's so much on YouTube.
So much. Yeah.
One of the things I was going to say about one of the resources you shared, the Insight Timer as an app, it also has a website. So that goes with it. So if you are not an app person or don't have a smartphone, you can just Google Insight Timer for that website that has all the same content on a website as they have on their wonderful app.
Yes. there is so much out there for mindfulness. So I did put some resources, but there's so much more. And I think it's whatever you connect with. So just start down your path and you'll find what works for you. What works for me might not work for you. But there's so much available. And yes, YouTube is an excellent resource for guided meditations and talks about meditation, the benefits, the challenges, all of that.
And I'm seeing not so many questions after that, but more just comments about how helpful this has been, how the resources and the examples were very helpful. So that's music to our ears.
Yeah.
We love hearing that this program has been meaningful for you, and that some of these strategies are things that you might begin to put to practice or to come to Kate's group. And so I just wanted to end today with a few closing comments. First of all, thank you so much for attending. As you leave the webinar today, an evaluation should pop up, but I'll put that in the email as well. And we ask that you take just a minute, it's really brief, to complete that evaluation, which helps us with future programming. I will send all of the handouts from today and a link to our website where you'll find a recording of this program, as well as our other Insights on Aging recordings. And that'll take you to directly from our website to our YouTube site, where you can see all of our previous programs. We hope that this has really been informative and enlightening for you. Our next Insights on Aging program is going to be on Friday, March 8th at 11. And Beth Fishman from our sister agency, Jewish Child and Family Services, will be addressing the topic of substance use in the family. So whether that may be a concern for you or a family member, or you just want to increase your knowledge in this area, we hope you'll join us for that next program. We're so happy to have all of you with us today. Kate, we're so appreciative of you, and we thank you very much for being with us. We hope you have a good long weekend and a meaningful Martin Luther King Day on Monday. Be well, stay safe, stay warm, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.